Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Marffa Presents Brick by Brick. I am back in Singapore. I landed this morning a couple of hours ago, and I have someone very, very special joining me in today's episode. I met him almost a year ago at a networking event for real estate at Mandala Club. And I remember arriving a bit later, and there was a room full of people, and we just got to talking. And there was something about the conversation that got us to have a coffee chat the next morning. And since then, I have gotten a friend who was born, bred in the UK. And since I was also living in London for a long time, we connected. Turns out he does real estate in Singapore for a while. But what's very, very interesting is that he has a long, outstanding career even before that. He has been in media, branding, advertising, marketing for a decade and more, has lived across the UK, Canada, Singapore, some time in China as well, from what I know.
That's right.
Which is crazy and so fascinating. And the reason that I wanted to get him on today's episode is because Marffa is expanding to London next month in February 2026. And he is someone who not only has experience in Singapore real estate, but has tremendous knowledge about the UK real estate landscape as well. And is looking to get more information on Dubai, which just makes him the perfect guest for today's episode. So please welcome Gilad on Brick by Brick.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here. Welcome back to Singapore.
Thank you. How are you feeling, Gilad? It's your first podcast, I know.
First ever podcast.
Thank you.
Popping the cherry. I'm very excited. A little bit nervous, but very excited.
This podcast actually happened because I think I texted you about a random meetup because
That's right.
We usually chat, and I've been trying him to get to Dubai or get to work with me in some capacity. And then I'm like, you know what? Just get on a podcast. It might be helpful to discover your experience in detail with the rest of the world.
Sure.
So tell us about yourself, Gilad. I know that you were in the UK.
Yeah. So look, I grew up in the UK, but I had a bit of an international childhood.
Which part of the UK were you?
I grew up in Cambridge.
Wow.
Which is very nice. Very nice place to grow up. I went to school in Switzerland. I spent a year at university in the Caribbean.
Oh, wow.
So I've always had an international outlook, and I left the UK at the tender age of 27 and moved to China for 5 years, which was absolutely...
5 years in China?
Yeah, I was in China. So I was in China from 1998 onwards for 5 years. It was life-changing. And then subsequently moved to Canada, and then I spent 8 years there living in the fabulous city of Toronto, which I adore greatly. And however, when there was an opportunity to move to Singapore with my role, with my job at the time, I jumped at it, and I've been here for 14 years and loving it.
That's wild. And you went to China and Canada for work. So work took you there as well?
So I was, like you said in the introduction, I was in the advertising and media industry.
And is that something you've always wanted to do?
I always wanted to be a barrister.
No way.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a barrister. When I was a little child, I wanted to be a barrister. And then I did what they call mini pupilages in the UK. Which is kind of like work experience, like internship with barristers. And I quickly decided I didn't want to be a barrister after all of that. But advertising, I had written an essay essentially. It was very boring. It was about the German language in advertising. And I thought, this psychology behind this is really interesting. So that piqued my interest, and it just progressed from there. So after I graduated, I managed to get a job at an ad agency in London. And
what did you study though?
I studied French and German.
Studied French. You're really international, huh?
Yeah. Although my French and German now is a little bit shaky. Little bit shaky.
Very cool. And then you got into the advertising space.
So I got into the advertising industry, and I joined at the time, and it was so much fun. It was really good fun. I'm not going to say it was like Mad Men. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but it was really, really fun, and it was very creative. And the agency I was with at the time was known for its creativity, and it was just amazing. It was just fabulous. But I always wanted to move abroad, and the lure of China in the late 90s and sort of the tiger was too much, and so I moved. So I moved to China and I moved to Canada, both for work.
Was it a culture shock though, coming from the UK to China? It's very different cultures.
It's very different. It's of course it's very different, and I sometimes amazed at some of the experiences that I had in China and how people reacted to me and everything.
How was it?
People were fascinated at the time.
Because you were white?
Because there were foreigners. There weren't that many. I lived in Guangzhou. I started off in Guangzhou before I moved to Shanghai, and there were very few foreigners in Guangzhou. Not there were none, but there were very few foreigners, and we were quite sort of the oddity. And people were just very, very friendly, very, very friendly. But wanted to practice English, wanted to learn more, wanted to get to know you. People weren't offish at all. It was really, really interesting. But I was definitely a minority. So
did you get a special treatment, or was it? Or was it difficult to fit in? Like, was it the latter?
I don't know if I got special treatment. I probably got allowances, for cultural faux pas that I made. People were probably, which I probably didn't even realize at the time.
And did they speak English? Like,
some people spoke really good English. It wasn't as widespread as it is now. I mean, that's
why I was very curious.
A lot of Chinese people speak better English than I do these days. But it was growing. English was growing. I was actually quite surprised how much English was spoken, because we did business in English with our clients. I would speak to my team in English. I tried my very best to learn as much Chinese as I could. I took Chinese lessons in the mornings before work and that kind of stuff. And
no way.
Yeah.
Were you able to get a grasp of the language?
By the end of the 5 years, I was able to speak
normally,
okay,
5 minutes.
An okay amount of Chinese to understand it. But again, now it's probably a little bit rusty. Anyway, so look, I lived in China, lived in Canada, moved for work, spent my entire career in advertising up until a few years ago, predominantly on the sort of the management or the client servicing side, or running large accounts or running divisions or running offices, that kind of thing. Until eventually...
Yes, real estate happened.
Until eventually real estate happened, yes.
How did real estate happen?
How did real estate happen? Okay, the honest story is I grew a little bit weary with the advertising industry. And I think the advertising industry grew a little bit weary with me. And so we had a parting of the ways.
A mutual parting.
Well, it wasn't mutual. Certainly wasn't mutual, but I didn't mind. I really didn't mind. And then I was thinking, well, what shall I do? And someone said to me, you should be a real estate agent. And I thought to myself, why have I spent the past 10 years trying to figure out how to get out of the advertising industry? Because I'd launched a gym here. I had a gym business here.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was going to be my exit from the advertising industry. I thought I was going to be a fitness person. Not the most suitable, I don't think. But that was great. That gave me a lot of entrepreneurial experience. And when this person said, you should become a real estate agent, I was like,
why not?
Yeah. Why? I absolutely should. That's the perfect thing for me to do. Because I'm British and property's in our blood. We're obsessed.
That is so true.
We're obsessed with property
British
in the UK.
Obsessed with real estate.
Yeah, absolutely obsessed with real estate. So it's, I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So I became a real estate agent. I trained in Singapore. It's a very regulated industry. You have to be certified. And it's not easy. It's not like you just turn up for class and at the end of the day they give you a little piece of paper.
How is it to be certified in Singapore? How long does it take?
It takes a long while. And it takes a long while because, first of all, you have to attend a course. Now, if you're going to do the course, it's probably over a couple of months that you can do it. Not every single day.
And is it online or is it in person?
In person.
Oh,
although
wow.
I did most of mine because I was coming still... People were still in post-COVID world, so a lot of mine was
on Zoom
and stuff. And then you have to take an exam, and there's only three exam periods in the year, so you have to wait. So you have to wait until the next ones come up.
That's crazy.
And the crazy thing is, to book an exam slot, the booking system opens for like 2 hours. You go online, but all the slots go within like 60 to 90 seconds. So you have to be there at like 9 a.m. and just tap
Oh my God, it's worse than booking a unit in an off-plan launch in Dubai.
It's exactly. Well, it's good practice. It's good.
It's good practice.
It's good practice for that. I was told the first time oh, you've got a couple of minutes. So I submitted my application. I went through. I checked it. I was way too late. So I had to wait another 4 months for the next slot. So eventually I got a slot, and then I had to study really hard. And I was studying in university. I was in the library in Singapore.
Like SATs, like
I studied harder for this exam than I did for my degree. I'm not joking you. I'm not joking you. I was in the library, me and all the kids studying for their exams.
It's that serious.
It's that serious. It's that serious because a lot of it is about law and regulations in Singapore. And the thing about the Singapore real estate exam is it's an exam that is designed to fail. Because so many people
like
want
the
to...
Dubai driving license.
Okay, I don't know about that. I mean, having been to Dubai, I'm not entirely sure it works, that system.
We talk about that later.
But the real estate system here, because so many people want to be agents and they want to regulate the amount of agents that there are, they don't want to say that they're regulating, so they kind of weed it out by not allowing so many people
to pass it.
To pass. So they make the exam really hard. I mean, there's a pass.
Is it multiple choice or?
It's multiple choice, but the questions are actually. Maybe I'm dumb. Okay, maybe I'm really unintelligent, and it's difficult for me, and it wasn't for other people. But the questions are really intricate, and as a native English speaker, I was struggling to choose some of the answers because the difference in A and B and C was
slightly here and there,
minute. If you're a non-native speaker, it's impossible. Anyway, so eventually, about 9 months after starting the course, I managed to pass the exams first time. So I was very fortunate.
Congratulations!
Thank you very much. Again, probably the highest academic achievement. And so I passed, and so then I became a real estate agent.
So it took you 9 months.
It took me 9 months. Yeah, I think maybe even more. I don't know, something like that.
And how many regulated agents are there in Singapore? Gilad? How many agents are there who are certified?
I think now there are about 36,000.
36,000.
36,000 agents in a population of 6 million.
6.7 million.
6.6 million. Yeah, it's crazy. Someone said, I don't know if this is true. Someone said there are as many real estate agents in Singapore as there are in New York, which I don't know. I'm sure someone can look that.
It's insane. I literally had a client call 3-4 days ago, and I'm not going to name names, but this client of mine is also a real estate agent in Singapore who wants to buy in Dubai. And it was a referral client. So we got on a phone call and she's like, so I'm an agent in Singapore. I'm like, great. So you understand. So it's an easier conversation. She's like, yeah, but I do one rental deal a year. So maybe a lot of people get certified and then
there are a lot of people in Singapore who are certified. There are a lot of part-timers.
Correct. I think that's the beauty.
And there are a lot of people who are registered but don't really practice. And at best, they kind of do the minimum necessary in terms of training throughout the year to requalify. Because every year you have to study, you have to do professional development training.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You have to do 16 hours. Now they've just changed it this year. Moving forward, you have to do 16 hours of learning or relearning in order to keep your license.
Because in Dubai we have more than 80,000 agents.
That's crazy.
I know. And with the population of 4 million people.
Oh, that's insane.
I mean, to be fair, the certified are less than 30,000. So we have way less certified agents. But a lot of people just practice real estate because, honey attracts flies.
Yeah.
And when they see how rewarding it is, and Dubai has been on everyone's mind lately, they just fly off on a tourist visa, get into a real estate company, start practicing without anything. And then once they do something, they get a company visa and they get certified later on.
Wow, that's insane. Okay.
And there is no
I'm going to walk back my comment about numbers of agents versus New York because that's clearly probably very wrong. But 80,000 agents in Dubai, wow.
Like
for a 4 million population.
For 4 million
and growing.
And growing.
Significantly.
We will be like 6.7 or 7.4 million by 2040 in 15 years.
Yeah.
So we are where Singapore was
Yeah.
15 years ago, but with a lot more agents in today's time. And that's why I literally had a client and we went on a coffee and he's bought from me, right? And they buy from me without seeing what they've bought because it's off plan, which is under construction. So when they come to Dubai finally, they're like, show me what we bought. So of course, like, let's go around and finally show you what you've already put money on.
Site, yeah.
Sure. And they were talking and they showed me on their phone, and this was last week, they had more than 20 missed calls in 3 days from +971 numbers. And the only one saved was my number because I'm their agent. And they're like, I'm not sure how, Mallika, but they got my number and they've been getting calls nonstop. And I think it's a bit off-putting as well when you have so many agents. And the thing is, most of them might not even know what they're doing.
Yep.
And then you just bombard people with phone calls, especially in a place like Singapore as well.
Well, this is exactly the thing. So from experience, I know from dealing with clients that there are agents who don't know Dubai, who say they are Dubai agents, don't really know Dubai. And so I only want to bring my clients and help my clients with agents that I trust implicitly, who I believe really know the market. So if you know of someone, Mallika.
Yeah, thank you. It's so rude. No, we have worked together before.
I know.
It's been brilliant. But I work with a lot of Singapore realtors because from what I know, they're not allowed to practice Dubai real estate being a certified Singapore realtor.
Singapore agents can sell on behalf of developers in Singapore if an agency is appointed. So, for example, I mean, the truth is, my agency, Huttons, we represent Dubai properties.
You mentioned that to me.
Yeah, so we work with developers, in Dubai, and we represent them in Singapore. So, that we have members of our team that are Dubai specialists who do know the market extremely, extremely well. But I don't think it's a question that you can necessarily just, pick up the phone and
be like, I'm going to sell Dubai to you today because I want to do it.
Exactly. I think as with every market, you have to know it intricately.
Of course.
Otherwise, how can you build confidence? How can you're spending, when I was in the advertising industry, I was in the part of the industry where we would get to spend the client's budget. I was in what was called media. And so we were the ones who were buying the space. So we would buy, when I started out, we were buying ad space in magazines and newspapers and TV, etc. And obviously that moved into digital over the years. And the thing that always stuck in my mind was being told, treat your client's money
like your own money.
Like your own.
Of course.
Okay. And so when I think about real estate, I want to treat my client's money like it's my own because this is not, you're not going to buy a handbag. You're not buying a pair of trainers. This is
inexpensive.
This is a lot of money that people are dealing with, and you can't afford mistakes, and you can't afford to recommend the wrong properties or not help them with the right financials. No. So that's the way I always look at it. Basically.
And that's with people who make money, Gilad. Yeah. There are so many agents in Dubai that do it because the rewards are so high, but they forget that desperate, like it comes off, like if you do not know what the market is. And
I sometimes, when I hear some of my colleagues and the way that they're talking about clients and the way that they're talking about properties, sometimes it makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable that they seem to have their interests ahead of the clients. We do have in Singapore, it is true. We do have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients. And to be fair, I work with, I would say, vast majority, if not almost all of the agents that I like to work with have incredible integrity.
Of course, and it attracts. You attract the same kind of people, right?
But again, it's not like swapping between a small item and if you don't like this, buy that. It's no, of course not. And it's interesting because in Dubai, every agent is running a media company of themselves. Like what I mean is they all have to record videos. In Dubai, social media is massive because most of our investors are overseas, aka Singapore, London, and around the world. So for us to tell them what's happening in Dubai, we have to make videos and have that promoted in these countries and send them the videos. So if you walk into Dubai, you would see most people in a suit with a videographer just running around the street, outside buildings and sales. Like it's everywhere. Yeah.
More than content creators.
I can imagine. It's similar, but probably a little bit less so in Singapore.
I was about to ask the same thing.
But of course, social media is huge here, and TikTok in particular is just exploding.
TikTok?
Yeah.
Are you on TikTok?
I
would love to see you on TikTok.
I was a little bit, but the problem, I wasn't doing the right kind of content on TikTok. I'm rethinking my TikTok strategy right now.
I really want to check your TikTok profile.
Yeah, my TikTok's terrible. I don't promote it. It was a got to try. Trial and error.
The reason I asked that, Gilad, is because most people in Dubai are overseas buyers. So from what I know, what little I know from Singapore, a lot of people in Singapore would love to buy in Singapore before they buy outside, given they can buy it or they are PR or there's no stamp duty, etc.
Yeah.
So is marketing still that important, or otherwise do you think it's vastly relationship based on decades of I know you from a long time and now I'm ready to buy an off-plan or ready project, let's go?
Well, I think you can approach it from two angles. In terms of being the agent of choice, I think in Singapore, because there are so many agents in Singapore,
as well,
everyone has a friend or an aunt or
who
a
is a real
cousin
estate agent.
who's a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And so it's natural to want to go with them.
Yeah.
There are a lot of agents who do a great job of promoting themselves, who are very successful and do a great job of promoting themselves and attract clients. There's a lot of social media around the properties themselves. So particularly when it comes to the off-plan properties, to the new launches. Just before the podcast, we were talking about new launches in Singapore, which are incredibly popular. 2025 was a phenomenal year for new launches. In fact, some of the highest numbers in new launch units sold.
I just made a report for the wrap-up for 2025. I do it every quarter. And what we looked at was that off-plan in Dubai was up by more than 60-70% in volume and value in Dubai than ready. And given Dubai is so young and we're only 17% developed, it makes sense. When you look at a Singapore, I'm just intrigued to understand the ready versus off-plan sale in terms of approximate percentages, if that's more or less.
Probably, I know when we look at sort of the revenues within the agency, I know that it's probably for us a 70-30 split between resale and off-plan.
Okay.
Whether that's a reflection on the number of transactions, I don't know if it matches equally or not. And I would say those ratios are probably the same for the major agencies in Singapore. It's we're no different to our competitors in terms of the mix of units that we sell. But new launches are incredibly popular here. But everything in Singapore, you have to remember, everything is incredibly controlled by the government in terms of land sales, in terms of releasing the plots. There is the wonderful thing about Singapore is there's a 50-year master plan in Singapore, and there are every 5 years the master plan gets revised and updated. And the way that the Singapore government thinks about population growth, population needs, it's phenomenal. I really wish other countries, I know Dubai does a great job as well. And I know Dubai models itself a lot on Singapore.
Correct. Exactly. I was about to say the same thing.
You have to take your hat off to the Singapore government and to the URA, which is the Urban Redevelopment Authority. The way that they think about land use and land planning. Now, as a golfer, I'm upset because I keep taking away the golf courses in Singapore to build. Yes. But I can understand for the greater good. It's better to build affordable housing in Singapore.
So in Singapore, they also refurbish a lot of old houses.
So you do get so in Singapore, there's a great en bloc, as they call it. As a building goes en bloc.
Correct. I've heard that from a client.
Especially every old building, everyone's waiting to see, will it go en bloc?
Because then they get paid thrice the amount of money.
Because then they get paid, theoretically, they get paid a lot more money by the developer than they would to sell it on the open market. And some of these en blocs, when they go through, can be incredibly profitable. Very few actually succeed at the moment. And part of the reason is because there is still enough government land. So why would a developer...
Is there enough land for them to build on?
Ultimately, no. There isn't enough land. So Singapore has, throughout its history, Singapore, when population growth has got too big, they plan ahead, or they plan for population growth, and they reclaim a lot of land. So probably the most famous piece of reclaimed land at the moment is Marina Bay. I mean, that was, 50 years ago, that was a puddle. That was just water.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
They're now going to be reclaiming some land, creating some land on the East Coast, which they're calling Long Island. And so the East Coast, the sea, what is now beach, will become enclosed. It'll essentially become a lagoon or a lake. I'm not sure what the correct term is, but they will build around. And so if they haven't got enough land, they just build. You know, Beach Road in Singapore is called Beach Road because it
was
used to be the beach.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like Dubai. If you see any off-plan launch in Dubai, Gilad, I promise you, 5 out of 6 would have a lagoon inside the community.
Yeah.
And it's just like the thing of Dubai right now that every community will have some waterfront facility, and they just build it. It's all man-made, and so is Dubai. But I think it's very much modeled on Singapore. Even like you said, Marina Bay, so is Burj Khalifa. Like something like that is so iconic as the Marina Bay did not exist around 20 years ago.
No.
It was completed in 2014. No. So it's incredible how these two cities have been. Again, what's interesting is when COVID hit, and read this online, Singapore and Dubai were the only two cities that bounced back the fastest from the pandemic than around the world, which was incredible.
Again, there are criticisms you could level against Singapore.
So does Dubai.
But the way that the way I personally feel, the way that Singapore is managed is phenomenal. I think the government does a great job, and they've time and time again they've succeeded in just economic growth, resilience. It's a phenomenal place. It's a phenomenal place.
And have you been to Dubai?
I have been to Dubai. So in my previous job, I was responsible for the Middle East aspect for my clients. So I used to come to Dubai on a pretty regular basis.
No way. When was this?
So I used to go to Dubai a lot between 2011 and 2018 maybe.
So when it was developing, like when it was literally not what it is today, it was developing.
But it was still pretty phenomenal back then. I mean, I haven't been back since, but I mean, it wasn't just that one building that everyone has that image of. This like here's these two buildings in Dubai then, and now it's this big thing. But no, it was amazing. 8 years ago.
Where did you put up in Dubai?
I used to stay at the address in the marina.
Of course, the address of the marina. Yeah, it was it's the largest marina in the world, man-made marina in the world. Yeah. One of the first few communities to be ready in Dubai.
Yeah. I loved it. I love Dubai. I actually very nearly moved to Dubai instead of Singapore, but that's a story for another day.
No way.
Yeah.
And what did you think of Dubai when you were visiting so regularly? Because you had lived across multiple countries by then, which were far more developed, if I could say so, in terms of infrastructure when you compare that to Dubai.
Well, I think in terms of infrastructure, yes, that was it. I mean, you have Sheikh Zayed, the sort of the metro was
the main roads, yeah.
You had the main road, you had Sheikh Zayed Road. You had the metro just going up and down.
There's only one line.
That's all it was.
Yeah,
that's all it was. And you knew that if you stepped outside of the main part, you were in the desert. I thought it was. You could see
that
you could obviously see the development there had been. You could understand why there was a bit of a glut of property at the time, and why it had crashed. Obviously, that's in the rearview mirror now. I mean,
it is, and I think at that point there was not enough people to absorb the demand.
No, I think that's the big difference.
Correct.
That's the big difference. The amount of people moving to Dubai now is phenomenal. No, I really enjoyed being in Dubai, and every time I'd go, I'd be like, oh.
Maybe I could move.
I was like, did I make the right decision to move to Singapore?
You could always move again.
I could always move again, but I do love Singapore. I thought Dubai was phenomenal.
And do you see a lot of your clients looking at Dubai? Because you have introduced me to a few people who are looking at Dubai. Increasingly.
So, I, apart from Singapore property, handle property in a number of other markets. I've got a launch in Vietnam coming up, which I can talk about another time. I was just in Ho Chi Minh just before Christmas, visiting the development. But I deal a lot in UK property, but increasingly in Dubai. There's a lot of interest in Dubai. Right now, the UK is still the number one market for Singaporeans to buy.
Is it?
It is.
And you deal with a lot of British,
is.
Indian expats, is it? Or
Well, it's predominantly Singaporeans who are buying. In Singapore, it is predominantly Singaporean.
Singaporeans buying it?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
That's new.
For many, many years, Singaporeans have bought property in the UK.
And why do you think that is?
I think for a couple of reasons. First of all, there was certainly a period from sort of the late 90s onwards where property prices just started accelerating. And then they dropped with the financial crisis in 2008, and then they rebounded really quickly. When interest rates went down to practically zero or down to zero, property prices rebounded super quickly. Property prices in major cities dropped a little bit in COVID. Outside of the major cities, they went up. And now they've started to rebound. So there's been a history of capital appreciation. It's as a long-term investment. It's very stable. It's very secure. It's a well-regulated market. There are obviously historical connections between Singapore and the UK. A lot of Singaporeans have studied in the UK or have worked. A lot of Singaporeans send their children to study in the UK.
That's true.
We see a lot of Chinese investors in the UK, and a part of it is because their children are studying at universities in the UK. But again, it's been one of those markets where you could buy overseas. 20 years ago, you probably couldn't, as a foreigner, buy or feel confident buying in Dubai. You may not feel confident buying in some other markets. Australia is another big draw.
Because they give PR very easily, is it?
It's not so much. Singaporeans don't tend to buy properties because of visas. Singaporeans tend
the strongest passport in the world, to be fair. So they
don't need it. I mean, Singaporeans tend to buy overseas properties as investments. They look at it as
pure investment.
They look at it as a financial, unless they're buying for their child to study in the UK. But quite often, what they'll do is they'll think to themselves, "Well, I'll buy a property for my child to study in the UK, and in the meantime, it's going to grow and it'll be a good investment." So those are some of the major drivers. But again, the UK has a strong track record of property price growth year on year. You get good rental yields. Better rental yields in the UK, particularly outside of London in markets like
What's
Birmingham.
The average rental yield?
For example, I could take my own property. For example, in Birmingham, I'm getting a 5% yield, and I could probably get better. Yeah, you can get 5, 6, 7, 8 if you do it. If you're really focused on UK and you pick the right properties and you invest the time, you can get up to 8, 9, 10% rental yields in certain types of properties. You compare that to Singapore, where you're getting 2, maybe 3%. If you're getting higher than that, you're doing really well at the moment on residential property for rental
But in
yields.
Singapore, you're then counting on appreciation more than the ROI.
You are counting on appreciation. But again, in Singapore, capital appreciation is fairly steady.
Like inflation.
2, 3, 4%, unless you're buying an off-plan. And then when you sell it on completion or on TOP, and then you can obviously gain a bit more of an increase.
What's the average increase in off-plan in Singapore once it's ready?
I couldn't put a single number. The Singapore market, even though it's a small city by global standards, it's incredibly segmented in terms of both the geography within Singapore and the types of properties. The types of new launches that are aimed at, whether they're aimed at sort of mass or whether they're more affluent. Whether they are pure private or whether they're what we call executive condominiums, which are a kind of a cross between a condo and an HDB. The landed market is its own sector, its own segment. That sees very strong growth. Because again, that is a victim of land scarcity in Singapore.
It's very interesting because in Dubai, we have a number like at average, any property that you buy off plan, given you're not buying at ridiculous price and you know what you're doing, you would look at least 8 to 9% year on year appreciation.
I think there were years back in the UK, particularly in parts of London, particularly in Cambridge, where I come from, where you could get that capital appreciation. It's over the past couple of years, it's tapered off. So I think, I was looking at a study just the other day, and the forecast for house prices, the national forecast for house prices in the UK is about 2 to 3% in 2026. I think that's probably about correct. I think there'll be variations. You look at something like an Edinburgh, you look at a Liverpool, it's probably a little bit higher. Look at Manchester as well.
It's higher because the price to enter is lower.
The price to enter is lower.
And the rents are still like a bit high. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's very interesting because I have a lot of clients in Singapore, Gilad, who are British Indian expats, which is my usual client type. And they're trying to liquidate their properties in the UK. And then I'm moving to London, like not moving. I'm expanding to London is the right word. I'm still very much in Singapore. There are a lot of people who are Britishers who want to get out of London.
Yes.
From your Hampstead area, your Chelsea, and they want to put their capital in Dubai.
Yes.
Why do you think that's happening now?
I would suggest probably because of greater potential capital appreciation. I think, those are two markets. So, for example, Chelsea right now, the market in those premium properties, certainly if they're sort of the 2 million plus, there's some regulations coming into the UK which are going to affect the more expensive properties. There's certain taxes coming in for properties above £2 million. But most of our clients don't invest anywhere close to that. You don't need to invest anywhere close to £2 million to have a good property in the UK.
What's the average?
So, you can enter a market like Birmingham or Manchester for upwards of 200,000. And there are other markets you could enter.
Which is around 1 million dirhams.
Okay, I will take your word for it.
It is.
Okay.
Oh, wow. We can enter that with 1 million dirhams.
Absolutely. A lot of our investors buy properties for £200,000-300,000. They're buying new launches in the UK for £200,000-300,000. You move into London and your entry price is closer to £400,000 or £500,000 for a small one bedroom on the outskirts. London is, it's basically segmented again geographically and in terms of types of property, but zones.
Zone 1, 2, 3, 4,
5, which is mapped according to the underground. So obviously,
a zone 1 would be very expensive as opposed to a Harrow.
So the closer you get to zone 1, the more expensive the property is. So something like a Chelsea is a zone 1, and those properties, you could enter for about £1 million for a nice property.
That's interesting.
Some of the zone 2, £600,000-700,000 for an entry. Zone 3, zone 4, 400,000.
I think it's very interesting because I think Dubai is not segmented like London is because we don't have zone 1, 2, 3, 4. But when I do talk to people in the UK, I do talk about zone 1, 2, 3, 4 Dubai standards so it's familiar for them. Yeah. But because Dubai is so small, for now, you can still enter with like a £200,000, but the minimum to enter would be around 500,000 dirhams. That's not even like £100,000 or something. And that was also on a progressive payment plan. So your down payment would be anywhere around £20,000. So I think because we're so young, we're not segmented as of that yet. I think you can still enter the main city of Dubai with like a lower investment, but I do believe that's going to go way higher.
I think you're right. I think that's going to, I see Dubai only going up, at least for the foreseeable future.
It's very cool because I do have a lot of people in the UK who knew that taxes in the UK are high, and we have dealt with that for a long time. I think now that Dubai has been spoken about so much so that they're genuinely thinking about moving from London to save on that tax and still visiting that during the summers and then having a good time in Dubai when the weather is nicer.
That's true. I mean, if you were to read the UK press over the past 6 months, maybe over the past year, you'd be reading about sort of an exodus of millionaires from the UK, and they're predominantly going
to Dubai and Singapore.
They're going to Dubai. Well, they're predominantly going to Dubai. Whether it's really an exodus, I think it's probably a little bit of journalistic, what's the word I'm looking for? Extravagance, perhaps. But certainly there are a lot of people who are moving to Dubai from the UK. Because that it's warm, they get low tax, they can afford to buy
really nice property.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between people who move to Dubai and people who move to Singapore. I think it's probably easier. The impression I've always had of Dubai is that it's easier to move to Dubai from a work visa perspective than it is to move to Singapore. Sure. Certainly in Singapore, there are financial requirements, there are quotas on the amount of visas that are issued, work permits that are issued. So it's again, with everything in Singapore, everything's moderated.
Correct. It's very interesting because I usually predominantly deal with expats, right?
Yep.
So I don't have a larger audience or clientele of Singaporeans. And what's interesting is, because I think you deal with a lot of Singaporeans as clientele, which is very fascinating, do you still because Dubai has been spoken about so much, so in Singapore as well, if you go to an MBS every weekend, there's an expo,
Yep.
a Dubai Property Expo at major hotels in Singapore.
Yep.
Do you still see Singaporeans going and talking about the UK property
Yes.
landscape?
Yes. Oh,
And,
yes.
And do you think it's because Dubai does not have the history that the UK has?
I think the impression that Dubai has amongst a lot of Singapore
locals.
locals is that it's unregulated, that it's wild, it's a cowboy market, which I know is not the truth. But that's the impression, I think. Whereas they look at the UK and they know it's safe.
The money will not go anywhere.
No.
And these Singaporean or these locals, like, do they think about exiting, or the idea for them is a like long-term hold? Like,
no, I think again, look, I say I'm dealing with a client at the moment who's looking to liquidate a portfolio of 8 properties.
in the UK, you mentioned,
7 in London, 1 in Cambridge, ironically.
and is doing that.
They're doing it because she's decided, you know what, she's made some good money, and she wants to exit. Maybe wants to hand it down to her children or grandchildren. So yeah, people do think about exit. You know, as I said, you know, I think a lot of Singaporeans they're very unemotional about properties as property investment outside of their own home. And even for their own home, it's often a financial decision, but a large part.
It's a mix of
It's a mixture of finance and emotion. But outside of Singapore, you know, it's shall I put it in fixed deposit? Shall I put it in equities? Shall I buy a property? You know, and so obviously my job is always to try and convince them to buy property. You know, but I think that an overseas property should form part of a diversified portfolio.
Correct.
So I'm working with another client at the moment who has just bought in Manchester. Mm-hmm. And I've got a call with him tomorrow because he wants to talk about buying in Japan, or maybe in Malaysia, or maybe another property, a commercial property here in Singapore. So we're going to be talking about the pros and the cons of investing. So again, it's very much people who invest in property in Singapore are generally believers in property as an investment versus other forms of investment. That sounds obvious, clearly,
of course. But do you see that opinion changing about Dubai from these people?
Yes, I do. Because there've been more and more sales, because it's more well known. A lot of the advertising, a lot of the seminars.
But do you think it's off-putting as well? Because we were talking about this before the podcast started as well, and I was like, a lot of my clients get bombarded by agents in Dubai, and sometimes it's off-putting because you really have to market so much, then something might be wrong.
I think if you scroll on Facebook or Instagram and you see property after property after property after property after property agency,
it's off-putting.
It's off-putting, but it's okay. I think if you're getting called by agents on a regular basis, that's actually intrusive, and I think it's unacceptable. So, but I think no. I think ultimately there's still a long way for Dubai property in Singapore, and I think
for locals.
Yeah. I think it's a harder conversation than, for example, the UK. It's a harder conversation, I think, for someone like Malaysia, possibly even for Australia.
Because it's familiar. I think Malaysia, Australia,
it's less familiar.
Familiar.
And, you know, people want to know that it's safe and secure. But what Dubai has going for it is, as a financial investment, right now, it's phenomenal.
It is.
It is phenomenal.
And the yields are way more than any of these cities combined.
Yeah. And so, you know, if you're going to take a very unemotional approach to an investment, why wouldn't you?
I think it's just a trust that they have to have in the city.
It's a trust. And I think they have to trust the agent, have to trust that the agent knows what they're doing. And again, that's why, and we were joking about it before, but that's why I only want my clients to talk to agents that I trust implicitly. Yeah. You know, if they're not buying through me, and, you know, maybe we don't have the right product for them, maybe we don't have the right property for them, and that's fine. If we don't have it, then I will find it, and I will come to my trusted advisor and
AKA me.
Yes, you.
Okay, good.
Oh my gosh, yes, you.
Okay, good. No, this is very, very fascinating. And let's say you have a client today, like, do you see them also going towards your Thailand and Bali these days as well? Because that's what I have been seeing as well.
I think a little bit less so. Less so Thailand over the past couple of years, because they have...
Even Phuket, like, Phuket has been...
Phuket still sees some investment. I think you get a lot of expats. I really hate the term expat, but anyway, we know what we're talking about. Expats, yeah, who buy in places like Phuket, and you have to be careful about buying because the Thai regulations around owning property.
It's a bit, yeah.
It's like Bali. You're not really buying; you're long leasing.
Correct. Similar to Bali as well.
Yeah, they are buying in those markets, and they're buying partly for lifestyle as well as for investment. There are some great investments in Phuket. I've come across some developments recently which I was like, I could quite fancy buying this. I think a lot of others, those who are probably a little bit less, those who are more risk averse rather, are looking at the political situation in Thailand and going, it's probably not quite as safe and secure. We know Thailand laws and regulations can change at the drop of a hat. Often there'll be some change in regulation that will get announced, but it's really just an idea and they're just kind of feeling out in the market to see whether it's something that they should implement, and it takes them a long while to implement, but still sends the market into a bit of a frenzy in terms of, things are changing again.
Correct.
Some people are saying, well, we're not going to buy in Bangkok because of the earthquake. I mean, you can't legislate for something like that. I mean, a lot of modern buildings in Bangkok are built to withstand earthquakes, and it happens once.
It's same as Dubai, right? Yeah. Like we're told to withstand the heat, so we're not gonna get burnt and stuff. Because it's built that way.
So but the job obviously of a real estate agent and an advisor is to present the facts. To
have them decide. Because I've lately been having conversations around global real estate as opposed to Dubai real estate, because they want to see which cities are the best to put their money in. And London has stood out. Usually, Singapore has always stood out because it's like the safest thing for them. But I think now when people visit Dubai, more and more of them trust the vision that the ruler has for the city. And I think with Dubai real estate, it's not about investing in properties. Similar to Singapore. In Singapore, they don't invest in a particular condo. They invest in the vision of how safe Singapore as a city is.
That's right.
And I think that's how Dubai is modeled as well, which is very, very cool to see.
I think the thing at the moment with Dubai, which obviously London or other parts of the UK, because there are great investments outside of London. As I said, places like Birmingham and Manchester in particular.
Right.
I think the one thing I hear from a lot of clients when we talk about Dubai is they feel they've seen the news from the global financial crisis, and they feel like there's a bubble in Dubai.
I hear that every single day.
And I'm sure you have that conversation, and so you have to reassure them that no, it's
not a fad.
It's not a fad. It's not a fad. Look, do we honestly expect capital appreciation at 8-9% forever?
No,
Probably no.
Of course not. Of course not.
Of course not.
It's a golden era.
But while it's happening now, take advantage.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So I think people are still disputed between Singapore, London and Dubai, and rightly so. I think it depends on which fits who.
Yeah.
Right? When you did visit Dubai versus now it's been a long time, do you still have like a assumption about Dubai, or like a thing that you think Dubai has that it might not be true? Like a biggest idea or thinking process or thought about Dubai that just might not be true. But
I don't. I mean, I look at Dubai and I'm amazed by what they can do. Obviously, and again, I say obviously, and you can tell me if this is true or not. I think in Dubai, people are conscious of that the law and the culture is not the same. And you do hear these silly horror stories of idiots who come to Dubai and they engage in activities that are culturally insensitive and end up in jail or kicked out the country. I would hope that Dubai is going to mellow a little bit, but then I also hope that
it's
visitors
like Singapore,
to Dubai behave.
To be extremely honest, I think Dubai is a Muslim country or a city, not a country. But it's not crazy.
No.
I think it's well within limits. Like you would not feel like you have to behave a certain way that's not normal or that's not reasonable for you to be accepted. But of course, I think if somebody does not behave within reasonable limits, it is not tolerated.
And I understand that. And I think there are a lot of people who just don't appreciate that, who just come in and think that they're on holiday or
land of the free.
Land of the free, and they can do whatever they want. And they give they give Dubai a bad name sometimes.
Probably because my family moved to Dubai in 2017, 2016. And at that point, we have Ramadan, which is one of the biggest festivals or culture things in Dubai. And usually you could not eat in public or drink in public because then, it's not good. Now, restaurants are open and you could openly drink and eat in public, and that's acceptable because they understand a lot of foreign population is coming to Dubai and they might not have the same culture norms and might not have the same festivals as them. And that's okay. So I do believe that it might have been true before.
Yeah.
But I think we're very much like Singapore where it's regulated, but well within reasons.
I think it's like many countries, as long as things are kind of kept a little bit behind closed doors, you're going to be fine. But if you openly offend,
or even like PDA, I think public display of affection is not something that they are really keen on, and that's okay. It's a culture shock for people from Europe, because it's so free. Yeah. In Dubai, it's not.
No,
very
exactly.
free.
Exactly.
I think that's why they might feel.
But no, I mean, I there's nothing I look at Dubai now, and I have queries about. It's nothing I think, is that not necessarily true? I mean, you can see where the UAE is going, how it's positioning, how the Emirates, all of the Emirates are developing. You can see Abu Dhabi now is, we're starting to sell, actually my agency starting to sell.
Us too, we're doing Abu Dhabi as well.
In Abu Dhabi, and Ras Al Khaimah is now being sold. There's an agency here that is heavy on selling Ras Al Khaimah here in Singapore.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think it's got a very positive future. I think the property market in Singapore for Dubai, again, like I said, it still has a long runway. Yeah. But I think there's still an education process, which I know you do a good job of
Would you ever consider moving to Dubai then?
Potentially.
Potentially? And would you ever consider working with me?
I think of nothing I'd like to do more.
I love that. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap this up?
Are we going to wrap up already?
We're going to wrap up already, Gilad. It has been a lovely conversation.
And I think, it really has.
Yeah, and I think I love how you have talked about every global real estate in a very positive light, as opposed to deeming one better than the other. And I think it's right.
I think there is a market and there is a type of property
for everyone.
Depending on your risk level, depending on the capital that you want to invest.
Correct.
Listen, if you want to spend $100 million on a property in Beverly Hills,
go ahead. It's your money.
Go ahead. I'm not going to say that's a bad necessarily. No, and if you can do it through me, even better.
It'd be perfect. It's true.
No, it's true. No, I mean, look, what are your expectations for 2026? What are your hopes for 2026?
Honestly, Gilad, when I came here in 2024, I remember my first meeting was at Raffles at it was Molly Malone's, and I remember it so vividly. And I had 35 bankers, and I said the story multiple times, who sat in front of me, and little old me with heels and like formal clothes, and I just felt like an outsider because I realized it's not the Singapore zone that you're supposed to be in. But they would ask me questions about it being a bubble and inflation and oversupply. And they were asking me a lot about Dubai than properties, because I had to sell them the idea of Dubai and reassure them that's not a fad. Close to now 2026, it's been 2 years. And I promise you that my conversations no longer surround why Dubai anymore. And you came to my event that happened in August, and at that event I didn't talk about why Dubai. I got a few questions, but my conversation was about what property would suit you and your financial capacity the most.
That's right.
And I've seen that shift happen within my events as well, where Dubai doesn't need to sell itself.
Yeah.
But there is slightly reassuring thing that you still have to do for them to then pull that trigger.
I have to say, and I'm not just saying this, I do love the way that you approach what kind of property, what kind of investor are you? Well, if you're this kind of investor, then this kind of it's this kind of property. I thought that was a great way to explain the market and sell the market. Something that I am planning to copy.
I'm happy for you to copy it. Well, Gilad, thank you so much for being a guest on Brick by Brick. I think the audience learned so much about UK, Singapore, and Dubai real estate. And I was fascinated to understand how Singapore real estate is run. So I have learned a lot of new things today. I do look forward to having Gilad in Dubai whenever the time is right. I think it will be awesome because
I think so too.
You are so good at what you do. And it's a very natural conversation with you every single time we meet on or off camera. And it really portrays of how good you are with your clients and how much you want to help them. And it doesn't come across to a lot of people. You're a good person who's good at sales as opposed to being a good salesperson.
Okay.
And I love that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're
You're so
welcome.
nice. So flattering.
So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Note, guys, we will wrap up today's episode. Just a reminder that Marffa is expanding to London in February, and we are very, very excited. Our first event happens on the 19th of February in the heart of London in Mayfair. And we will send out invites and more information as soon as possible. But on that note, have a great rest of the day. And here's Mallika signing off from yet another episode of Marffa Presents Brick by Brick. See you next time.